everyone. Today we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting polynomials. So some important features that you should know is that adding and subtracting polynomials require you to use distributive property and combining like terms. We learned that way at the beginning of the year. So if you need to go back and look at that, please look under quarter one or on your website. Another thing that you need to know is that all answers should be written from the largest power to the smallest power. That means constants or numbers without a variable with it are always at the end. Now I did these notes a little bit differently. I wrote out the steps and then we'll go through some examples because the steps are about the same. So step one, use distributive property. So in front of each set of parentheses, we can assume there's a 1. We've talked about that in the future, or in the past, I should say. Since positive 1 times anything doesn't change the number, we can skip this step for addition. So I wrote this in here just in case you wanted to get in the habit of it, and we'll see how that works in just a bit. However, it is very, very, very important. I said that 3 times. It is underlined, it's capitalized. Make sure that you do it. To use distributive property with subtraction. This will change the positives into negatives and the negatives into positives. And if you don't do that, you're going to get your answer wrong every single time. And then finally, the second step, I should say, is to combine like terms. Remember to look at the variable and the power when combining like terms. So if it's x to the 5th and x to the 4th, you cannot combine them. And also don't forget to use the sign in front of the number to make sure that your number is positive or negative. So I like to put shapes around it just to make sure that I know that the sign and the number are included together. And then finally, step 3, there we go. Write from the largest power to the smallest power. The largest power can be found by adding the numbers in one term if needed. So an example of that is 5x to the 3rd y to the 1st, technically as a power of 4 because we have a 3 and a 1 added together. That's just a case scenario. Most of the time you're going to see like x to the 5th power, x to the 4th power, and so on. So let's take a look at how this works in an example. Okay, adding polynomial example. We have 5x squared plus 7x to the 3rd plus 3x to the 3rd minus 2x squared plus 8. So first step is distributive property. Now there's technically a 1 in front of these parentheses. We have a positive 1 over here and a positive 1 over here. Now if I do distributive property, 1 times 5x squared is going to be 5x squared. 1 times 7x cubed is going to be a positive 7x cubed. 1 times 3x to the 3rd is positive 3x to the 3rd. 1 times negative 2x squared is negative 2x squared. And 1 times 8 is a positive 8. So the only thing that changed after doing distributive property was that the parentheses went away. When you multiply by a positive 1, things don't change. That's why you can skip this step for addition. But I want you to kind of get in the habit of it because when you come to subtraction, you will see how super important it is. So next step is going to be combining like terms. We talked about this in a couple of videos, so I will show you the same way that I did there. We have our equation. I want to make sure that I'm looking at the powers and the variables. Right here, I have a positive 5x squared, and that can be combined with my negative 2x squared. Notice how I'm putting the box to include the sign in front. That is super important. Then I also have a positive 7x cubed and a positive 3x cubed. Again, that's super important to include the sign in front. And then finally, I have this positive 8. There's nothing I can combine with it, but it's there and I need to make sure I include it. So I'm going to start getting in the habit of using the larger powers. So I'm going to write my 7x cubed plus 3x cubed. Those two need to be combined together. And then I have a positive 5x squared and a negative 2x squared. Those two need to be combined as well. And then my positive 8. And then taking the math, let's go down and do it. So 7x cubed plus 3x cubed, 7 plus 3 is going to be 10, and then we include that x cubed. Over here, we have a positive 5x squared and a negative 2x squared. That will give us a positive 3x squared, because 5 minus 2 is 3. And then that positive 8 just stays where it is. Great, we've combined like terms. So step 3, write the largest power to the smallest power in that order, and we already kind of did that. So our final answer is 10x cubed plus 3x squared plus 8. And we are all done. Not too bad? I hope so. Let's take a look at some subtraction. Okay, subtracting polynomial example. We have 4x minus 2x squared minus 6 minus 5x minus 4x squared. Super, super important to do distributive property. I cannot emphasize this enough. Technically, there is a 1 in front of that first set of parentheses. You don't technically need to do that, but it's good to get in the habit, because when you get to this one right here, that negative sign, that negative is actually a -1 that needs to be distributed to everything in that second set of parentheses. I guarantee you, if you don't do this, you are going to get it wrong every single time. So 1 times 4x is going to be 4x. 1 times negative 2x squared is negative 2x squared. And now let's look at that negative. Negative 1 times a positive 6 is a negative 6. Negative 1 times negative 5x is a positive 5x. And negative 1 times negative 4x squared is a positive 4x squared. See how you will get this wrong if you do not do that. So now that I've done my distributive property, I can combine like terms. First off, positive 4x can be combined with a positive 5x. Negative 2x squared can be combined with a positive 4x squared. And negative 6 is just all by itself. Again, getting the habit of the largest power to the smallest power, I'm going to do negative 2x squared plus 4x squared. And that can be combined together. We have a positive 4x and a positive 5x. And then we have our negative 6. Completing the work, going down. Negative 2x squared plus 4x squared will give us 2x squared. 4x plus 5x is going to be a positive 9x. That negative 6 comes along for the ride. And finally, write your answer, largest power to smallest power. And there you go. There's your answer. So make sure you include these steps for each and every one. If there are more than 2 sets of parentheses, still continue using the same steps. You will just take whatever numbers in front of each set of the parentheses and do some distributive property. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.